panning out the way I would hope or the way I wish? Why am I, dealing with these certain stresses or concerns or whatever the case may be? And I just have to say, God, I am angry with you. The whole thing that brought it up was my leaf blower wouldn't work. And I'm praying, God, let this thing start up. I need, I want my leaf blower working. I needed to work to get the grass clippings out of the way, and so I don't have to sweep. It didn't work. And I just flopped down and I said, Lord, why do you do it this way? Why are things like this? Why do you do things this way? I don't trust you. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you love me. These are all things that came out of my thoughts as I was wrestling with God this week. Sitting on my hind end, just pouting. And then God, you notice I'm still here. He didn't strike me dead. No lightning came down and said, well, you look who you're talking to, Zach. No more hand. You guys have to form a search committee. No, God is a gentle and gracious God. He knows that I am weak, that I am sinful, that I am prone to unbelief, that I am prone to despair, crybabyish attitudes. And so he was patient. And he reminded me of several things. And as I was diving into this text and looking into this text, he was telling me, how can you preach unless you believe? How can you preach unless you believe? But it happens all the time. I preach better than I act. I preach better than I live. That's just the reality. I'm a sinner. But then I think, here I am, studying, diving into this text, putting hours of prayer time, of study into God's unfolding plan with His people. And how much more are you all going through your daily lives, through your daily walk, and you're feeling the strain of disappointment, of the various things that life can bring you, health concerns, financial concerns, isolation in your own home, relational strains, or whatever the case may be, or just anxiety because of how everything. We got oil spills, we got wars, we got economic woes, we got political turmoil. Everybody in sports is using performance-enhancing drugs. TV is awful. There's nothing worth doing or celebrating in this culture, and you just have this general sense of anxiety. And you give into thoughts of fear, doubt, despair, unbelief. But then part of you also says, I can't think that way. I'm a Christian. I can't. God's going to get me if I think this way. God is a gentle and gracious God. And the reason why He reveals Himself in such ways, one reason why Isaac had to endure 20 years of a barren wife. And you have to understand this. In this culture, if a couple is married 20 years and they have no children, one of the unfortunate realities is they'll look and say, no big deal. They're doing their thing. They have a career that they need to do. They need to be ready anyway to have children. They're not quite ready. And people having children later and later and later in life is no big thing. As a matter of fact, one of the discussions in this culture is what's called delayed adolescence, especially in males. Basically, that men are living well into their 30s before they decide to make adult decisions like getting married, starting a family, getting a job. They'd rather play video games and live in their parents' basement than actually strike off and become an adult. So this delayed adolescence from the time they're 12 years old till they're 35 years old. And I've seen it with my own friends. Many of them are, they're just now getting married, which is great. But children are probably going to be well down the line because they're still busy having fun, partying every Friday night or Saturday night, having their time, doing what they want to do. And it's just, it's kind of a sad state to see, but it is coming up in this culture. But in that culture, the culture that they live in, for a woman to be barren was such a social stigma attached to it. There was such a cultural no-no to not have children, mainly because you needed a male child to procure the name. You needed a male child to help with your family work, your family livelihood. In the case of a husband dying, you have male children that can take up for their fathers and take care of the family business and so on and so forth. But it also signifies the blessing of God. And here she is, 20 years as a social outcast because she doesn't have children. She's married, healthy by all means, but she's not able to have children. And Isaac prayed for 20 years. He didn't do what his father did. He didn't go into another woman to have a daughter. He believed in the promise that God had given him. So that belief resulted in faithful action through prayer. He prayed for his wife. Here I am, as an example, one of the stresses I have is my house is still on the market. 7 months been on the market, not 7 months, and I gave up. Sat down and I cried. Not literally, but I was close, I'm sure. 7 months, 20 years. In 20 years, but then if you weigh out what Isaac prayed for, what I'm praying for, I'm just praying for a little bit of, financial relief and one less monkey on my back. Isaac was praying for his life according to God's promises to his family that he will bless the whole world through Abraham's seed, and that seed goes to Isaac. So that means Isaac must have a child in order for that blessing to come true. He waited 20 years for that. God allowed them to bear the strain and the burden of being socially outcast, because not necessarily, I don't want to say outcast, but think about it. If you come from a culture where you believe having children is a sign of the blessing of God, and here you are without children, what are people going to say? What are people going to say? I knew a couple. They're called supers. Great people, lovely. I love them very dearly. And they were converted as adults and made some bad decisions. I don't know all the details, but from my understanding, she had done damage to her body. She was not able to have children. And they'd been married 10 years, no children. And well-meaning Christians were going up to her and saying, I just know God's going to bring you a baby. I just know you're going to have a baby. But medically, the reality is no. He was pretty well paired. He never had a baby. But after 10 years, imagine the heartbreak. And I sat with John, and we talked. And his heart was broken for his wife. Of all the things she had to do with well-meaning Christians saying, I just know God's going to give you a baby. And here she is, yearning and longing for a baby. But she knows I can't have a baby. I cannot. Apart from an absolute miracle of God, I cannot have a baby. Here these women are telling me, yes, you're going to have a baby. Just know you're going to have a baby. Just every time, just pour salt into the already open wound of this dear woman's heart. The other day, I looked them up on Facebook and I saw that there's a little Chinese girl sitting on his shoulder. And one of the discussions we had with John was like, you cannot have a baby, but your heart is desired to adopt a child from China. I was like, think about this. In the darkest communist China, where the Christian listen, at that time, there wasn't, things weren't going on in China like they are now. But at that time, China was a closed country. I said, if you are able, if God, through your pain, suffering, without having children, He, through that pain, is able to reach into the darkness of China, pluck out a little girl, and place her in your home where you will share her the gospel, where she will come to faith in Jesus Christ. How much worth it is that 10 years of pain? That through that pain, this little girl will come to faith in Jesus Christ in ways that were impossible in that close country. And so for me to see that little girl on his shoulders, it really it was very encouraging to see the Lord had blessed him. I lost touch with him over a couple of years, and I hope to get back in touch with him. This is how the Lord operates. Through our pain, through our trials, through our suffering. He's not sitting there going, look, I own everything and I'm bored up here, so I just want to see you guys sweat a little bit. He says, I love you. You don't deserve it though. You don't deserve it. I'm just going to tell you right now, the sermon I had planned is already gone, so we'll do that. But he said, you don't deserve it. You're sinners. You don't deserve my grace. Or you don't deserve my love. Such is my grace. That Rebecca deserved nothing more than to suffer this. She deserved to be socially outcast. She deserved to have the pain of being barren. But Isaac, faith and belief in the promises of God, and belief in the character of God and who He is, prayed for 20 years for his wife. promise extends to, and it goes through Isaac, and ultimately comes to the personal work of Jesus Christ. We are inheritors of this promise. So when you sit here today, and you think about the trials and the stresses that you have in your life, and you wonder, God, are you against me? Are you pushing against me? Am I an unwanted child? Am I the one that's made to sit in the corner so that no one else notices? Is that what's going on with me? Same conversation I had, God, am I loved by you? Do you care for me? Why am I suffering this way? And behind that kind of thought is an attitude that is permeating in all of our hearts. It is the attitude of religion. And what I mean by religion is not, a system of faith that builds it, but I'm saying religion that says, I do things to appease you, God. I do things to make you happy. I give my offerings. I study my Bible. I pray. I fellowship at church. I sing songs of praise to you. I do whatever it is I do. And the result needs to be that I make you happy with me by jumping through the hoops. You give me what's my due. You give me my rights. I have rights before you. That is the attitude behind what caused me to essentially sit down and throw a temper tantrum. Is that I have rights, God, because I have done what you have asked of me. You owe me. You owe me. I'm a pastor, father, a husband, Christian, do all this stuff for you. You owe me. Now my leaf blower won't work. You're going to get it from me. And God's response through His Word is that you are a sinner. You are a sinner. If I were to give you what I owed you, you would have been annihilated as soon as you took your first breath. For I cannot look upon sin. I am the thrice holy God. But you have received grace, Tim. You have received grace from my hand. At the cost of my Son, you have received grace. And you have received grace by faith. And I have made you my child. You have believed on the promise. Those who have trusted in my Son Jesus Christ will be saved. And part and parcel of that promise is that I will make you more like my Son Jesus Christ. So I will burn away that dross